Okay, in addition to the packet, the things you need are your multiplication table and then this sheet here. Now let's talk about the sheet. Before we solve the equation, we have to list the degrees of x. If you have x second and x, you're using factoring properties. That's list your solution set. That means put how many answers there are, highest exponent. Then you make sure you're at 0, then there's either going to be 2 or 3 terms. 2 terms is GCF, difference of perfect squares. 3 terms is GCF, then the table. Okay, now if you have x only, okay, there's not any other types of x but x. You use linear properties. You list your solution set. It's only going to be 1 because there's no power on the x. Collect your x's into 1 if they are not already. Then you put the wall and solve it. You're good. Wall, list your operations and solve it. Okay, x is second power only. That again is very similar to this. Linear properties. You list your solution set. That would have 2 because it's x second. Okay. Collect your x's into 1. Okay. If the x seconds into 1, I should say. And then wall, list your operations, solve it, then you'll have to do a square root at the end. This is just almost identical to this, except you have to do the square root to get rid of the second. Here you won't have a second, so you wouldn't have to do it. Okay, so let's get rocking. 7x to the second power minus 21x equals 0. Well, start listing your x's. You have x second and x. Well, x second and x is factoring properties. So you list your solution set down here in the corner, okay? It's determined by the highest exponent that we have, the x2, it's 2, so there's 2 answers. Then you make sure you're at 0, looks like we're good to go. And then you count how many terms you have. You have two slots, GCF, and then DOPS, difference of perfect squares. Okay, so I have x in the final slot. I have to factor out x. I do not have a negative in the front slot. Then 7 and 21 are in row 7. Okay, so I'll factor out a 7. Not a negative though, because we don't have negative in the front. Then whatever I'm putting in the GCF, that's what we need to divide by. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. Now I have to divide the x second by the x. That leaves me with a remainder of x. Negative 21 divided by 7 is negative 3. And then the x divided by x results in a complete wipeout, so I should not see an x on the 3. Okay, now before I go to the next box, when we carry out the GCF, we bring the GCF over. And we scribble this out and that out, okay? Or just slash it out because this is what you're looking at now. Okay, first term positive, second term negative, you bet. Okay, so 1 is a perfect square, that's 1 times 1. But the x is not to the second power. Then you can't go x times x, because x to the second is x times x. This x is already not to the second, so we get rid of that, okay? And we just bring that 1x minus 3 over here. Then you put equals 0. And you solve it, f1, f2. So 7x could equal 0, 1x minus 3 could equal 0. So 0 divided by 7 is 0. Then if you have 1 as your multiplication dot number, get rid of it and you just add 3 and you're done. 0 plus 3 is 3. 0 and 3. Okay. Next problem, x to the second minus 2x minus 63 equals 0. What do you have for x's? You have x second. You have x to the first. Just put x, don't put it to the first. And that's it. But you still have to use your factoring properties. Okay. Alright, so list your solution set down here. It's determined by x's highest exponent, which is 2. So you make sure you're set equal to 0. You are. Now you count how many terms you have, 2 or 3. Slot, 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 looks like 3 to me. So now it's GCF table. That's the setup. Okay, so I do not have x on the end. I don't have the negative in front. 1, 2, and 63. Just they'd be in ones row. Every number is in ones row. You don't see them because a multiplication chart's not long enough. Okay, so 1, that means we will not be doing that, so we're not going to put that little parentheses at the beginning. Okay, now I find my a times c to figure out what goes on top of here. So that's a 1 times a negative 63, and that's negative 63. So that's a mismatch. And it has to add negative 2. 63 divided by 1 is 63. That's negative 62. Decimal 3 and 21. That's negative 18. That's not close. Okay. Decimal, 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 7 and 9. Okay. So 7 plus negative 9 is negative 2. Okay. Okay, so you put in your positive 7, your negative 9. Now your a, where did you list the a? Up there, you just look up. It's 1x to the second. So you go x times x to account for the x second, then you put the 1 in front of the x's. Okay, 1 and 7 are together in row 1. Okay. 1 and 9 are together also in row 1. So this will just remain the same, as will this one. Okay, so remember this ABC has been rewritten as 1x plus 7 times 1x minus 9. So we just start, these are the only two we're going to have. We didn't do the GCF, remember, because it was 1. Okay. So 1x plus 7 equals 0, 1x minus 9 equals 0. So the multiplier is a 1, get rid of it, you just minus 7, and x would equal negative 7. Multiplier is a 1, get rid of it, you just plus 9, 0 plus 9 is 9. Okay, next problem, 2x plus 3 equals 4x plus 10. Now we have x, not to the second. We have x again. Well, I already wrote x down, so it's x only. Don't write the same thing down twice. That's going to confuse you, okay? X only. Okay, x only we're not factoring. X only we're using the linear properties. Not factoring properties, you're using linear properties. Okay, so list your solution set. It's just going to be 1 because it's x to the power of 1. You collect the x's into 1. Right now you have 2 of them. Okay, if they're on opposite sides, take out the smaller one. Had they been on the same side, I'd make the v and add them. So you have 3, and then that's 2x plus 10. We'll all solve, okay? So you got times 2 plus 10. You take out the plus 10 with minus 10. 3 minus 10 is negative 7, and then 2 dot x. Now you divide by the 2. I always circle because that's the side you're getting rid of the operators on. Negative 7 divided by 2 is negative 3.5. is. Okay, next one. 3x to the second power minus 10x minus 7 equals negative 1x plus 2x. So you have x second, you have x, then you have x second. I already wrote that down, and then x I already wrote down. So it's an x second x. Okay. List your solution set determined by the highest exponent. So it's x to the second. That would be 2 answers. Okay, but you don't have your 0. You got to get the 0 on that side. So plus 1x second. You just want to hang it, you can, or you can put it under the 3x second. It's up to you, whatever makes more sense to you. Minus 2x, you can hang that up, or you can put it under the negative 10x. It doesn't matter. But either way you do it, we're doing the slots. So x second, x, constant. So x second, look through that whole thing. You have a 3 and a 1, so that's 4. X, you have a negative 10 and a negative 2. You add those, and that's negative 12. You plus negative 10, negative 2. Constants, you just have the negative 7. That's it. Okay. Now we know that we're equal to 0. Check it. 2 terms or 3 terms, or look to be 3. GCF T. Now all is right with the world. Okay, so do you have an x on your final slot? No, that's a constant, so no x. You don't have a negative there. Then 4, 12, and 7. No 7. No, they're just all in one row. So 1, we don't do it. So we go up here, A, B, C. So positive 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Okay, so that's a mismatch. You put in positive, negative. And you have to add to get to your B, which is negative 12. 28 divided by 1 is 28. Add those, it's negative 27. That's wrong. 28 divided by 2 is 14. Add those, there's your negative 12. Okay. So you put in your parentheses, put in your mystery numbers, and then you got to pay attention to what your A is. A is 4x second. You don't just put 1x every time. So x, x, and you place the 4 in front. Okay, 4 and 2. That would be both in 2's row. 4 and 14. 4, 14 are in 2's row too. So it's going to give us 2x plus 1 when we divide that, and that's going to be 2x minus 7. Now, remember, this has been rewritten into this. The numbers in front of your x's need to multiply to what's in front of the x second. 2 times 2 is 4. Numbers behind the x's, 1 times negative 7, need to actually be equal to c, and they do. So now you put the 2x plus 1 times the 2x minus 7 over here equals 0. F1, F2, and you solve that bad boy. Okay, so you take out your plus 1 with minus 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, then divide by 2. You can write negative 0.5. You could also write negative 1. If you second PRB it, it's negative 1/2. Either one or the other. Then over here you got times 2 plus 7 plus 7. 2 dot x equals 7. Then divide by 2. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. You could also second PRB after you divide it, and it would become 3.5. Either do the decimals or the fractions. Okay, next problem. 7x to the second equals 14x. So you have x to the second, you have x. Well, with those two things separate, you definitely are factoring this. Okay, so list your solution set, highest exponent, that would be 2, 2. But you're not equal to 0, that's a problem we have to fix. You just take minus your 14x because it's positive and then just hang it. Okay, so we have x to the second, we have as the highest, and x and the constant equals 0. So x to the second has a 7 and that's it. The x has the negative 14. There is no constant at all, okay? You don't put 0 in, so you can put 0 if you want, but then you delete that, okay? So now that I'm equal to 0 and check it off, I see just two terms. So that's GCF and seeing if we have a difference of perfect squares. Okay, so these are the boxes I make. So here are my two slots. I have x on the end, so I need to factor out x. Do you have a negative in the front? No. 7 and 14. So 7 and 14 are both 7. Okay. So you wrap that up and you go up and divide by 7x. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Now we have x squared on top, x on bottom, so those need to be divided. Just like that. There would be a remainder of x next to the 1. Positive negative 14 divided by 2 is 7 is negative 2. Then you divide the x by the x, and that's a complete wipeout. Okay. Now you bring your GCF over here, 7x. Then you cross pretty much everything off other than the second parentheses. I mean, get rid of it all. This is where we're at now. So positive and a negative, that's term's positive, that term's negative, so that's the signs are right. Okay, 1 is 1 times 1. Is x to the second power? Well, that's the only way you can go xx, so we can't do that one. So if you can't do it, then delete it, and you bring that 1x minus 2 over here. Okay, so f1, f2. So 7x could equal 0, or 1x minus 2 could equal 0. So divide by 7, and that's 0. Take that 1 off. If it's a 1, you don't need to use it. Plus 2, and x equals 2. Okay, next problem. X to the second power plus 4x plus 20 equals 8 minus 3x. Okay, so you have x second. You have x. You have x again. I already wrote x. Don't write it a second time. So again, probably the same thing you're doing here, factoring properties. Okay, you list your solution set, x second, so there'd be two solutions. Okay. Where's the 0? We don't have it. Factoring properties, after you list your solution set, you have to have 0. We don't have it. So we got to take these two out individually. So minus 8. You can either put that under your 20 because those would be like terms, or you can just hang it. Then plus 3x, you can put that under your 4x, or you can just hang it. We're going to end up combining everything anyway into 1. So 0, and then we have x second, x, and the constant. X second, we have a 1, and that's it. X, we have a 4 and a 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. Constants, we have a 20 and a negative 8. So we add 20 and negative 8, and that's 12. Remember, if it's got that sign, it's negative. Okay, 3 terms, GCF, T. Now we actually do the actual factoring after it's been set up. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing an x on that final term, nor a negative on that. 1, 7, and 12. If 1's one of the three numbers, you know it's 1. Okay, so we're not going to make that little parentheses. So ABC's from here. Okay, so I take 1 times 12. Positive 1 times positive 12 is positive 12. So a positive, we finally have a match of the signs. So that means you're going to put negative on each side. And we have to be adding to the B, which is positive 7. 12 divided by 1 is 12. That's negative 13. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Add those, that's negative 8. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, I think you can stop dividing, but that's negative 7, so you go in and switch them both to positives. So you put in your positive 3, you put in your positive 4. Now the A, x second. Where did I put the A label? Right there, 1. Okay, so it's x times x. Now we attach the 1 in front of them. Then 1 and 3 are together only in row 1, and the same with 1 and 4. They're only together in row 1. So we'd be just dividing them by 1. So it'd be 1x plus 3, 1x plus 4. Okay, remember this ABC has been converted into this. Remember, the numbers in front of the x's, 1 times 1 should be equal to your A. After the x's, 3 times 4, 12, that should be equal to your C, and both of those are true. 1x plus 3 times 1x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, dot numbers of 1, take it out, minus 3, and you get negative 3. Dot numbers of 1, you can take it out, minus 4, and you're at negative 4. Negative 3 is negative 4. Okay, next one. 3x plus 4 equals 8x plus 7. So I've got x, constant, and then another x. I already wrote that down, then a constant. So for variables, we have x only, okay? It's a simpler problem, so we're not looking here at these properties. X only, we're looking at the linear properties. So this is the technique. List the solution set. Well, that's easy. Since the x has no power, there's only one answer. It'd be to the first power, so one answer. Collect your x's into 1, okay? Well, they're on opposite sides, so get rid of the smaller one. So we have positive 4, that's 5x plus 7. Now do your wall and solve it. Times 5 plus 7, both those need to go, so you minus 7 from your 4. 4 minus 7 is negative 3, and then 5 times x. Then you divide by the 5, because that's the what's multiplying the x. I want the x to get by itself. I don't care what's going on over here. Now x is by itself. Then negative 3 divided by 5 is negative 0.6. For those of you that divide, quit putting the x underneath with your 5. That's ridiculous. Okay. And then negative 0.6. If you want a second PRB, it would be negative 3/5. Okay, then we have 5x to the second power minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. Now, you have x second, you have x to the first. So now you're back, unfortunately, to the more complicated process, factoring properties. So you list your solution set down in the corner. X second means there's 2. Okay. Make sure equals 0. You are, check it. 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So GCF and the table. Okay, we don't have x, we don't have the negative 5, 3, and 8, okay. 5, 3, and 8 are only in one's row, that's good, then we don't have to do it, okay. A, B, C. So I take the A times the C. Positive 5 times negative 8. Positive times a negative is a negative, and 5 times 8 is 40. Okay, so that's a mismatch. And the mismatch has to add to negative 3. 40 divided by 1 is 40. Add those, it's negative 39. That doesn't work. 40 divided by 2 is 20. Negative 18. Decimal. 4 and 10. Negative 6. No. Be patient here. It's 40 divisible by 5. Yep, 5 and 8. And 5 plus negative 8 is negative 3. Okay. So the positive 5 and the mystery numbers from the table fill that out. Then where's your A? A is 5x to the second power. So it's x times x. Then you will be applying a 5 in front of each of your factors of x, okay? 5 and 5, okay, so the numbers are identical, so you don't look at the multiplication chart, you just divide by that number. 5 and 8 are not identical. They're both in row 1. So it's going to be 1x plus 1. That's 5x minus 8. So again, we've rewritten that ABC trinomial product back into the two factors. So x, 1 times 5 should equal what's in front of the x squared. It does. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. That should be what the C is, and it is. So I did this right. Okay, F1, F2. You can ditch your 1, minus 1, minus 1, you're at negative 1. That's it. Plus 8, 0 plus 8 is 8. 8 divided by 5 is 1.6. If you want a second PRB, it'd be 1 3/5.